Get ready to dive into an intense and unexpected story of love and passion. Here, a millionaire finds himself madly in love with a peasant girl, defying all social conventions. Meet Mike. He's a very determined and business-minded guy. He lives in the big city, in a fancy apartment right in the financial center. This is his headquarters, where he spends most of his time making plans and closing deals that make good money. Mike is the kind of person who takes life seriously, with a kind of tough guy attitude. For him, money is everything. And you know what else is crazy? He doesn't care who or what he has to face to get even richer and more powerful. Even with all this life in a skyscraper, Mike has a farm in the countryside, a family affair, but he rarely goes there. He finds life in the countryside a bit dull and repetitive. In the midst of his busy life, for several days his body and mind began to show signs that something wasn't right. Mike was feeling very stressed and ended up having an anxiety attack. He quickly went to the doctor, who examined him and told him that he needed to rest and relax. So Mike decided to spend a few days on his farm in the countryside to take a break from the stress of the big city. When he arrived at the farm, he was warmly welcomed by all the employees who worked there. But Mike wasn't very nice to them. He treated them arrogantly, didn't care much about them, just bossed them around and wanted everything done right. For him, the employees were just tools to make the farm work and earn more money. But lo and behold, during his stay at the farm, he ended up meeting Alessia, the housekeeper's daughter. Meet Alessia. She is a delicate and gentle girl, with eyes full of curiosity and kindness. Alessia is smart and determined. She dreams of graduating and achieving a better future for her family, even with all the problems they face. While Mike was busy with his business and worries, Alessia watched him from afar, a little curious about the mysterious man who had appeared on the farm. She couldn't understand how someone so rich and powerful could be so cold and distant towards the people around him. To Mike, Alessia was just another employee, someone who didn't make much difference to his life. But then, one sunny afternoon on the farm, Mike and Alessia met for the first time. One day, while Mike was walking through the farm fields, he saw Alessia from afar, tending to the flowers in the garden. She was wearing a simple dress, her blonde hair shone in the sun and a gentle smile lit up her face. What caught Mike's eye was the graceful and delicate way Alessia tended to the plants. Her skillful hands gently touched the petals and leaves. She seemed to have a special connection with nature, understanding and caring for the life around her. As he watched, Mike felt something different in his chest. He was enchanted by the tranquility and serenity that Alessia conveyed, something quite different from the hectic and relentless world he knew. One day, while Mike was walking around the farm, he saw Alessia from afar, tending to the flowers in the garden. She was wearing a simple dress, her brown hair shone in the sun and a gentle smile lit up her face. What caught Mike's attention was the graceful and delicate way in which Alessia cared for the plants. Her skillful hands gently touched the petals and leaves. She seemed to have a special connection with nature, understanding and caring for the life around her. As he watched, Mike felt something different in his chest, a gentle warmth spreading through his body. He was enchanted by the tranquility and serenity that Alessia conveyed, something quite different from the hectic and relentless world he knew. As time passed, Mike noticed something special about Alessia. It wasn't just her looks or her social position, but the warm and gentle way she behaved. It made him curious and challenged his beliefs about the world and the people around him. Even so, Mike didn't want to admit to himself how much it affected him. The next day, over lunch at the farm, as usual, he showed his arrogance by reprimanding one of the maids for a simple mistake. His voice echoed authoritatively as he hurled harsh criticisms, but he didn't care one bit about the employees' feelings. Alessia was in the room and couldn't hold back her indignation when she saw the injustice of Mike's arrogance. Even though she was a kind person, she took courage and confronted Mike in a surprising way. "I'm sorry, sir," she said firmly, her voice soft but full of determination. "I think Mary did the best she could. We all make mistakes, there's no need to be so rigid." Mike's eyes widened in surprise. He was used to being obeyed without being questioned, but here was Alessia, challenging him with unexpected courage. Mike couldn't help but admire Alessia's courage. There was something special about her determination and willingness to protect others, even at the risk of losing her job. Despite being irritated by Alessia's response, Mike couldn't get her image out of his head. Her courage, her eyes, her smile, her voice. Everything was imprinted in his mind. The next day, as the hours passed, he found himself looking for her among the employees. But Alessia was always busy, tending the garden or helping in the kitchen. Mike saw her from afar a few times, but never had the chance to talk to her. At the end of the day, he went back to his room, tired and confused. Why was he so enchanted by her? She was just a maid, someone he usually wouldn't even notice. The next day, while walking through the farm's gardens, Mike spotted Alessia in the distance. She was in the garden, tending the flowers with incredible care and grace. Her long blonde hair swayed in the wind and her eyes shone with a happy expression of peace. Mike hesitated for a moment, attracted by the serenity that Alessia conveyed. He approached slowly, his heart beating faster with the anticipation of the encounter. Alessia, he called, his voice softer than usual. How can I help you? She said. Mike took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the words as he tried to choose the right ones. He knew he needed to apologize for what had happened to Maria, but the words seemed to escape him at that moment. Watching Alessia earnestly, he searched for the right words, wanting his apology to be genuine and comforting. I wanted to apologize for how I acted, he began, struggling to express his sincerity. I was unfair and rude, and that's not right. I'm sorry if I hurt you or anyone else. He paused, hoping that Alessia would understand his sincerity and willingness to make things right. What I did to the maid wasn't nice, and I'm sorry if I hurt you. Alessia agreed with understanding, her eyes conveying forgiveness and kindness. She was unlike anyone Mike had ever met, and he found himself drawn to her kindness and compassion. It's okay, Mike, she replied. We all make mistakes, but the important thing is to recognize them and try to do better next time. These words were like a jolt to Mike, as he had always acted like this with his employees. And now he was getting advice from Alessia. His heart was pounding and he felt confused. He was used to being feared and admired, but here was this woman, offering him advice when he should have been afraid. She looked at him and asked, Have you apologized to Mary yet? Mike stared at this young maid and felt small in front of her. He, who had always considered himself superior to the servants, now stood there, feeling diminished, in front of a peasant girl he paid. Mike felt all his pride drain away inside him. He began to realize that he hadn't been a good person up to that point. Then he said, no, but I promise I'll talk to her, and smiled. Alessia was surprised. She knew about Mike's reputation and had never seen him smile. Now there he was, smiling and being kind. As the days went by, Mike made an effort to spend more time with Alessia. He discovered that she was smart and funny, with a unique way of seeing the world. As they talked, Mike didn't even notice the difference between them. They found moments to spend together, getting to know each other, laughing and even working together. Alessia's mother, watching carefully, knew that a romance between boss and employee could lead to problems. One day, Mike and Alessia were exploring the farm when they found a hidden pond. The sunlight shone on the water, creating a beautiful scene. Alessia looked at Mike, admiration and something else shining in her eyes. "Oh wow, it's incredible," as she exclaimed, her eyes shining. Mike looked at her, feeling his heart beat faster. "Yes, it's really beautiful," he said, without looking away. He lost himself in Alessia's eyes, captured by the tenderness and desire they conveyed. Despite the strong sun, it was the warmth of Alessia's presence that made him shiver inside. She was so close, so vulnerable, and he felt a growing desire inside him. Without exchanging a word, just following his heart, Mike leaned slowly towards Alessia, feeling their breaths come together. Everything around them disappeared, leaving just the two of them there, connected by desire and the emotion of the moment. Their lips touched, as if it were a magical moment that froze time. It was a kiss full of love and promises, without the need for words. As they were enveloped in this whirlwind of sensations, Mike felt complete for the first time, as if he had finally found what he had always been looking for. But when the kiss ended, harsh reality returned. He pulled back abruptly, surprised and full of doubts and fears. He looked at Alessia, seeing her standing there, her eyes full of hope and uncertainty. It was then that the cruel truth revealed itself. Alessia was just a maid, from a different place to Mike. He knew he couldn't fall in love with her, not with so many important things standing in his way. With his heart squeezed with sadness and confusion, Mike turned and ran away, abandoning the echo of their first kiss and the confused feelings it had brought with it. After the confusion of their first kiss, Mike was surrounded by a whirlwind of feelings. He was torn between a strong desire for Alessia and an overwhelming fear of the consequences. It was an internal struggle, as he tried to control the feelings growing inside him. Meanwhile, Alessia was silently sad, heartbroken by the difficult reality that her love for Mike was impossible. She wondered if she had been foolish to fall in love with her boss, knowing that there was a big difference between them. The pain of rejection was cruel. Rachel, Alessia's mother, saw her daughter's sadness with regret. She tried to comfort her, offering words of support in the midst of the whirlwind of emotions that surrounded her, trying to give her the strength and courage to face this difficult situation. Meanwhile, Mike, full of fear and confusion, decided it was best to leave before his feelings for Alessia completely consumed him. He closed his suitcase in silence, without looking back, and set off back to the city, leaving behind the farm and Alessia's broken heart. Thus, the two found themselves separated, not only by physical distance, but also by the great social gulf between them. While Alessia faced the pain of rejection, Mike tried to ignore the feelings that still haunted him, both confronted with the challenge of moving on amid the turbulence of a love that seemed impossible. While Alessia struggled to move on without being able to see Mike anymore, he was fighting a battle with his internal chaos. Even as he tried to resume his business and daily routine, Mike felt an emptiness in his chest. Every moment with Alessia echoed in his mind like memories he couldn't forget. Things that used to cheer him up now seemed dull. The image of Alessia kept popping into Mike's head, reminding him of what was really important in life. It was then that he decided to change his fate. Driven by love for her, Mike decided to face his fears and be honest about his feelings. He was ready to risk everything for the love he felt. With a heart full of hope, Mike set off in search of Alessia, determined to apologize for his mistakes and confess his love for her. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he was determined to fight for his love with all his might. Mike was nervous as he approached Alessia's house. Every step he took was with the desire to put things right. When he reached the door, he took a deep breath and knocked hard. When Alessia opened the door and saw Mike standing there, her heart leapt for joy. She could hardly believe he was there. Their eyes met, full of emotion. "I've come to apologize, Alessia," said Mike, sincerely. Mike held Alessia's hands tightly, looking deeply into her eyes. "I know I made a mistake, that I hurt you, and I'm so sorry. I can't imagine my life without you anymore." Alessia felt the tears coming as she listened to Mike speak. She wanted to believe him, she wanted to forgive him, but fear still kept her hesitating. But when Mike embraced her, all fear melted away, replaced by the comforting warmth of love. Their second kiss was like no other. Full of passion and promise, it showed that they were destined to be together, no matter what. Then Mike made a proposal. He invited Alessia to go with him to the city. Alessia said she loved the countryside and animals, and was studying to be a vet. She suggested that they meet at weekends. Mike looked at him fondly. "Alessia, I've realized that the city isn't my place anymore," he explained. Alessia smiled hopefully. "I love you too, Mike. But if you'd rather stay in the city, I understand, she said. But Mike shook his head.
No, Alessia.
I choose the countryside. If you're there, that's where I want to be too. A month later, Mike and Alessia were together on the farm, working side by side and sharing moments of pure happiness. The love that united them only grew each day, and they knew that they had found true happiness in each other. One beautiful spring morning, Mike took Alessia to the hidden lake where they had shared their first special moment. There, amidst the bright sunshine and the gentle breeze, he knelt down and took a small box out of his pocket. With his eyes shining with emotion, Mike looked into Alessia's eyes and said, "From the moment I met you, my life changed forever. You brought light to my darkest days and love to my heart. Would you agree to marry me and spend the rest of our lives together?" And so, under the warmth of the sun and the light of love, Mike and Alessia began a new journey together, knowing that, with love and dedication, their future would be filled with joy, happiness, and, of course, lots of love. Did you like this beautiful story? Leave a like and subscribe to the channel to follow the best love stories you've ever seen here. Thanks for watching and see you next time.